So, let's talk medic in New Vegas. Before I get too into this, I know some of you are thinking it and already thinking about writing it in the comments. I will be talking about Big Mountain, but for the start of things, I'd like to put Big Mountain aside because although it's the obvious one, I kind of want to start talking about the actual base game because I think it's the more interesting one, even though medic going on a rampage throughout Big Mountain would be very, very interesting, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Be patient. I'm sorry, I love you really. Now, I'm wondering, first and foremost, what Medic would think about Doc Mitchell putting his brain back together, essentially, at the start. Now, knowing Medic, it's probably one of the extra souls he's taken from someone, somewhere, that you know he probably has in this universe. Medic has medically found out how to remove someone's soul and just take it like a pill, presumably, but who knows? Anyway, I'm sure he would be, like, Doc Mitchell would be trying to administrate, what is that thing called, the Rorschach test, but like, what do you think of this? But like, how did you do this? How, I must absorb your knowledge. I know this is a strange early tangent to go on, but I feel like if I was Medic and someone had just performed a medical miracle on me, I would be very curious to know how that happened. You know, maybe this will become Medic's main obsession throughout the game. He's like, I want to put a brain back together. And thinking about it now, that would make his whole story fit very nicely with Old World Blues, considering, I said I wasn't going to talk about that till the end, but thinking about it now, that would, like, brains are very relevant to that story, so he could come back full circle, but like, I finally understand the intricacies of the brain. I can make my own now. This video's gone off the rails already, but I just think Medic doesn't care about anything else but science. I made that joke in the original short, but I'm just thinking that it's like, it's literally the point. Medic doesn't care about the socioeconomic politics of the wasteland. Medic just knows, can I sew a mole rat to some guy's leg and have them both survive somehow? Ironically enough, it reminds me a lot of the Heavy video, because I remember in the Heavy videos, everyone was commenting saying, the thing I don't believe about this the most is Benny would not be able to take down Heavy outside of Goodsprings. And although I agree, I can only bend the story of New Vegas so much before this starts to become general Fallout fan fiction, which again, I'm not against going into. However, for the time being, we're talking about New Vegas, and I'm sticking with New Vegas. So we'd have to come up with a justification as to why Medic is even doing a job where he's doing courier work, quite frankly, because the only real justification I could think about that is, oh, here's how he funds his experiments. But, you know, what can 2,000 caps really do for an experiment, quite frankly? In Medic's own words, exotic organs from black market animals don't just march into your chest cavity on their own. Medic's got to pay the bills somehow, and I don't think he's quite to the point yet of selling his booty hole for his experiments, so we're gonna have to wait. To an extent, I feel like Medic has that sort of energy where he almost doesn't acknowledge the world around him exists sometimes. It's entirely experiment-based, and that's it. And, you know, I can relate, quite frankly. I do the same thing with art occasionally, where it's like, oh, the world around me doesn't matter. Me must draw. So I know how he feels. But I feel to an extent, he'd be like, oh, that guy shot me? That's cool. What other experiments can I do around here? Like, I can't even imagine him being like, I must get revenge. Literally every other class, I think, would have the incentive to go bash Benny's head in. Bar Medic, I can't see that being an experiment. He'd be like, oh, revenge, maybe, oh, there's something over there. I must go poke it with a stick. Like I said in the Heavy video, that Heavy would do absolutely zero side quests until everyone said no, he'd do the side quests that crossed his path, but he wouldn't go out looking for them. Medic's kind of the complete opposite, where he would get distracted by each and every single side quest he could, just because he can look for a new experiment or a new specimen to poke at. Any excuse he'd get to gawk at a weird mutant, he'd probably take. Like, I'm thinking about when, you know, there's quests in, I think, Forlorn Hope, where you've got to fix the soldiers. I can't imagine him just going like, oh yeah, I'll fix them, no problem. But like, right, let's try this experimental cure on them. Almost like he's doing the dumb guy routes for them, you know, the low intelligent ones. He'd do that, and some of them work, but like, he's not doing them because he's dumb, he's doing them because I want to try a new thing on this patient. I will not do any further Medic accents, I swear, I apologize. Of all the classes that would require mods to play properly, Medic is probably the one that you'd need the mods for the most, because I can't see him taking rational options for most of these things. I can't even really see him caring for most options for most quests in general. He just wants to care about his own science stuff, and I feel like he'd need a bunch of different methods or things he can do. Like, you probably have to add a bunch of weird medical crafting items to the game just to make Medic somewhat viable in terms of actually feeling like you're playing Medic and not just a vaguely mad doctor character. You know, the more I think about Medic and read comments about Medic in New Vegas, the more I think this guy's kind of more villain material than protagonist material. Every other Team Fortress 2 class, you can argue some sense of protagonism-ism. I don't know what sort of phrase you want to use for that, but, you know, Medic is the one I think you could argue for the least, because I think he is by far the least moral, considering he just wants to cut stuff up and see what happens when he cuts stuff up and stitches stuff together. Like, there's very little, like, redeeming qualities to Medic, I feel. Like, don't get me wrong, all the classes are murderers to some extent, but Medic in particular is the one that I feel he does it more for the fun than any of the others do. Maybe I'm weird, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some Medic mains in the comments that can tell me, give me some Medic redeeming qualities. Why is he a good person? If he even is. Maybe you guys are all sociopaths as well? Who knows? I was thinking about that one scene in Gargoyles and Gravel where Medic and Engineer are making the weird pumpkin guy that they steal the brain from. And the guy in the brain box, he says, oh, I was robbing some naive German tourist in an alleyway. I woke up and I was here. And I just think that's a really interesting story, this idea that Medic went out there, made himself appear vulnerable to gather a victim. Because it is, I made a joke in the short about him being a serial killer. But Medic definitely does give me serial killer vibes. If any of them are going to be a serial killer, you know, you'd think Pyro, but no, it would be Medic. Full on Medic. He'd be one of those, like, not quite Hannibal Lecter types, but like, I'm trying to think of a serial killer who did experiments with his victims. The closest I'm coming is Jeffrey Dahmer, but he kind of just wanted to eat them. The second one is the Zodiac Killer, who wanted to be gathering souls for like slaves in the afterlife. And although, fun enough, Medic does gather souls, it's not for slaves in the afterlife, it's so he can avoid the afterlife, funnily enough, but it doesn't really fit. So I do apologize that I just dumped serial killer lore on you. I don't know if it's weird that I know so much about serial killers, but, you know, keeps things interesting, keeps you about. I've got this running joke with a friend of mine where I watch a bunch of these shrouded hand videos about torture techniques, and randomly I'll just say, oh, this random character from this random thing should be put in X torture technique, and she's gotten really scared now that I just know so many. Not sure how to feel about that, but it is pretty funny. Anyway, speaking of torture techniques, I feel like Medic, he would need a reason to go beat up Benny to get the chip back. And I can't really think of one. If anyone can come up with justification as to why he would, because you'd basically need the hand of God to come down and be like, Medic, progress the plot, please. And he'd go, oh, fine, all right then. So he'd go, you know, put his hand through Benny's head and play with his brain for a little bit. Because realistically, I can't see him caring too much. Everyone in the comments seemed to think that Medic would play both sides to his benefit. I do wonder how much he would actually care or even be interested in it, but I suppose if he got it in his head that, hey, if I do this, I might be able to set myself up with a lab to actually get stuff done and do what I want, I think he could make it his goal to get there. I feel like I've written Medic so far like an autistic kid that just wants to go home and play Minecraft. He doesn't care about school, he doesn't care about friends, he just wants to get home and build the biggest sandcastle he can in Minecraft and cares about absolutely nothing else. But I feel like Medic would be a little bit more cognizant of the goings on in the wasteland than I'm saying, because obviously he'd have to get stuff done, he'd have to get stuff going. So I think in the end, the NCR probably not going to go down too well with him, because although they like their unethical scientific experiments, they kind of want results, and I don't think Medic really has any specific goal he wants to achieve. He just likes sewing baboon uteruses into people. Also, second tangent, I love the amount of comments I get about Medic turning people into ape mommies in my comments section, and how that makes complete sense to me. Imagine any other comment section about anything else in the world where you can just like, oh yeah, they'll turn people into like monkey mummies, and you're just like, I understand what you're talking about. This is perfectly logical. You are not chatting absolute rubbish to me right now. Oh, TF2 Lore is strange. I can't see him going Legion when, besides Pyro, I can't see any of these guys going Legion, quite frankly, because in my mind, why you'd want to go through all this effort just to spend the rest of your life living in a tent surrounded by a bunch of sweaty dudes? Well, I mean, to some of you that might be a paradise, so never mind. But in my mind, doing all that to just sit there with no tech, no medical equipment, when you die, you just sort of die of some vague infection that could easily be cured with medicine, but no, our god king deems the plebs are not allowed to use medicine, so you're not. And that alone would make Medic think, yeah, nah, I'm not doing this, I'm leaving. So House, realistically, is the only option I think Medic would pick going forward. Up first. Because although I think Medic would see, oh, you know, House doesn't care about the public. You know, he can go ahead and make all his money. He can siphon his cash my way. And then I can have my own independent lab out there doing whatever. Everyone in the comments seem to think that Medic would be like trying to get House's original body back. Quite frankly, I don't think House would let Medic go anywhere near him. I know I wouldn't. If let's say I was this semi-immortal god locked in a tank, and this crazy nutter comes back and he's like, I can make you normal. I'd be like, no, you know, I would rather live the rest of my life as a shriveled up prune, you know? It's probably better than whatever this guy's gonna do to me. My point being, Medic wouldn't be able to touch House himself, but House would be very happy to have Medic as like an independent agent who can do what he wants. However, you know, House's whole point is, I want to make money. I'm here to run a business, make all the money I can, siphon it all into scientific exploits that are actually practical. And Medic doesn't want to do that. He wants to sew ape uteruses into people. So Medic probably wouldn't be able to do this above the table, so he'd have to do this in secret. And I think if Medic's out there kidnapping Freeside junkies to use as test subjects, that's going to get around. Oh, we're in Freeside. Oh, people are going missing. You know, that's going to start panic. And considering NCR are House's main customers, the rumors that there's a serial killer out there stealing people in the middle of the night, turning them into strange scientific abominations, and then just sort of like dumping them once he's done with them, isn't really going to go off of business. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you're into some weird stuff, but I wouldn't be into the idea of going to a place where there's an active serial killer on the loose. So I know that is someone's kink, you know? I would say no kink shaming, but quite frankly, complete kink shaming. You're weird if you like that. So clearly this business relationship wouldn't go too well, and that means House has to go. So Medic would look for a benefactor who's a little less judgmental about the awful decisions Medic's making in his life, which means Yes Man, our sweet cheese, our good time boy, is gonna be his prime candidate for the ruler of Vegas. Because Yes Man could handle all the administration stuff, while Medic's over there in the corner going God knows what. So, you know, Medic would probably deem it so no one's allowed to question where everyone's going, and then Yes Man would enforce that 1984 style, so no one would ever know. That's a state secret. Now, the interesting thing is, because the show has told us in about 20 years or so, the NCR is gonna get nuked, maybe it would get to the point where, before the rumors get out of Medic doing his epic serial killer stuff behind the scenes, maybe the NCR gets nuked at that point, so if Medic can just stave off long enough for the rumors to get out, maybe he can just outlast the NCR at this point, and they can just be dealing with their own stuff by the time the NCR gets nuked, basically. I'm gonna be real, since the show, none of these endings are really that happy, quite frankly. You've got the Legion ending, where everything gets sort of set on fire, and everyone's buggered. You've got the NCR ending, where they set themselves up too thin, and everything realistically gets buggered because the NCR gets nuked. And then they've got barely any resources in the Mojave. You've got the House ending, which kind of hinges on the NCR surviving and not getting nuked. The same thing with the Yes Man ending. So honestly, most of these classes, unless they can somehow find a way to be self-sufficient, they're all kinda without a paddle, so to speak. Part of me wonders if I should consider the show as canon going forward with these, but at the same time, I know they're going to be considered canon in the future, so I might as well keep the lore consistent. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of the lore and the show, Big Mountain. You know, what's his name? Carlisle Sinclair. He was in season 1 of the show. Spoilers, I guess, if you haven't watched it this far in. So, Medic, as everyone in the comments is keen to point out, would love Big Mountain. Big Mountain is basically his little wet dream. There is no way Medic is going to Big Mountain and is not making it his whole personality. Realistically, I kept saying that stuff about, oh, Medic would have no reason to go after Benny. If Medic found the satellite and was able to go to Big Mountain, that ending where the think tank takes over the wasteland would just be his canon ending, because I can't think of a reason he would go there and decide, no, I'll go get revenge on this random person who shot me in the head, because, you know, that's clearly my priority when I've got all of science here at my disposal. Like, realistically, if you wanted to do a Medic-accurate playthrough, you would just go to the Big MT and never leave, essentially, because I can't think of a reason he would after being given all those resources. You know, because the Big MT, they seemingly have infinite supplies of materials, infinite lobotomites, because people just wander in and they get lobotomized. So you'd have infinite test subjects to do whatever he wanted to. He's got the ghouls over there in Little Yangtze, so he can experiment on those. Like, it's literally a little paradise for him. And it wouldn't even need to worry about any of the tech side, because I always think, you know, engineer's more the tech person. He's more, I can build the robots. But a lot of the systems in Big MT are automated, so if he wanted to build robots, he could just do that on his own. So he would become essentially perfect villain material, this mad scientist, this what Dr. Mobius is projected to be to the player at the start of Big MT, but in actuality, able to send all these horrific scientific abominations at the protagonist, the new protagonist. After all that is said and done, he could become the new Grey Man and starts doing his own man versus machine riots against the Mojave and takes it over in his own way. Aw, yeah. Member shoutouts time. Thank you to Irrational Sloth, Brandon Ferretti, Camavis, Gams, That Guy, Johannes, No Pulse Jesus, Angel Rico, Tucket Flame, Thrawn1, Tommy the Cockroach, and Gamera.